Welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, the podcast covering all things soccer in the Queen City. So get in touch, soccer fans. Email us at feedback@cincinnati-soccertalk.com. Now, here's your host, Nick Suberly.
Hey, what's happening, CSTers? Welcome to episode 124 of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Glad you're with us here on this fine Monday evening. FC Cincinnati finally gets that elusive win over the Tampa Bay Rowdies 2-0 on Saturday night. A couple of goals this time by Ledesma and Koenig. Go figure. They continue to put the ball in the back of the net for the orange and blue. We'll look back at the match that was on Saturday evening, and of course, we're going to be looking ahead to what will be a very busy week for FC Cincinnati. They'll be hosting the Charlotte Independence on Wednesday night, followed by the New York Red Bulls over the weekend. So lots to discuss here on this show. Coming up here in about 20 minutes, we're going to visit with the Secretary of the Pride, Kevin Wallace, to discuss the unified supporters of FC Cincinnati, what exactly that means for the supporters groups going forward, as well as the relationship with the club. Of course, if you're watching us live here on Facebook, YouTube, and now Periscope, we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you chime in, have your say regarding all things FC Cincinnati. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at Cincy Soccer Talk. And of course, you can email us at feedback@CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. We don't have an episode captain this week, but again, if you want to wear an armband for an episode of CST, log on to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. And let's welcome in my cast of characters this week. I will start with the lone wolf, the Wolfman, Bill Wolf. Bill, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Good to be back. I wasn't here last week. I had to give some other people a chance to get in there and get a little break now and again. But yeah, it was back from Nashville and took a little rest and then back right at it. So more soccer.
Oh, but you wouldn't have it any other way, right, Bill?
Nah.
That's kind of your thing.
Yeah, I probably too much soccer if you ask my wife, but
well, it's only going to get worse.
That's why I don't ask her.
Well, glad to have you back, Bill. Also glad to have back. We're looking right at him, the one and only Ken Hecker. Ken, I can't remember the last time you were on the show, but how you been, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I guess I'm a little jealous of Bill. I mean, he gets soccer, and I get vacation and missing soccer and just. I feel like I'm catching up. It's been a while. I've got contractors I'm trying to get in my house. If anybody knows a good drywaller, please let me know.
How much you willing to pay?
A lot. I wouldn't say a lot. I don't have a lot to do. So anyways, I'm trying to plan an event and just catching up with work from the 1 week off. But it was good to be back on Saturday, and I met up with Rob in Boston at Mex pregame, and then ran into some old friends at the game, and now I'm ready to do it Wednesday. I get back-to-back games. I mean, I don't know the last time I actually got to do that, so good to be back.
Well, glad to have you back. Really excited because you've been doing some cool stuff all year. With expected goals and a lot of data-driven statistics for FC Cincinnati. I'm looking forward to maybe possibly picking your brain a little bit later on in this episode because I'm sure everybody wants to know what the expected goals will be for Charlotte and Red Bulls, and I'm sure, knowing you like I do, you've already got that at your fingertips.
Nerd alert.
Good to have you back. Last but not least, we welcome back Brad Weigel to the show. Brad, how are you?
Good. I'm not sure how you guys don't have enough soccer. We just had 34 days of World Cup action going on here, and congratulations to France as well as the FC Cincinnati connection there. Johan Demey, our assistant coach from France, and I'm sure he celebrated profusely on Sunday after the win. So congrats to him, and hopefully he can help raise his own cup the end of this year for FC Cincinnati.
Oh, I like how you did that, Brad. Well done.
Mm-hmm.
Not to toot my own horn.
No pressure.
Yeah, right. Not to toot my own horn, but I did say on this very podcast at the beginning of the tournament that France would be winning. So if only my World Cup predictions could translate into Growler Cup predictions because I'm not doing so hot there. So, yeah. Anyway, we move on quickly. FC Cincinnati wins 2-0 over the Tampa Bay Rowdies. We usually start this segment off with our best and worst. And so I'll start with you, Brad. Give me your best and worst from this weekend.
My best has to go to Corbin Bone on his cross to Emmanuel Ledesma. I know it was what Ledesma said was his first header with the goal, and he's going to get the publicity just for scoring that. But the awareness Corbin Bone had to have the pressure on him, he was still able to look up and pick out that pass. It's just a thing of beauty. This team's showing how talented they are, and they just need a little bit of room. So if you're Tampa and your future teams, you got to make sure Tampa coach, you got to be upset with that, and future teams is something to learn from. But just a great job, Corbin Bone, on that build-up leading into the goal.
How about your worst?
Talked about the goal scorer, Emmanuel Ledesma. I also have to give him my worst here, and not necessarily for his play, just the guy picked up a 6th yellow card this week. And I know when we get 8, we get another suspension. Kind of, we talked about this with Deco Kynan, I think a week or two ago. He just has to be smarter. He's got to keep his composure. We love what he does with the ball at his feet, but he's picking up fouls way too easy, and we don't want that to come back to hurt us late in the year as we challenge for a playoff spot, or even heck, if we get into the playoff and he picks up a unfortunate card. So just got to be smarter there. He's so talented, but that's my worst of the week.
Yeah, kind of one of those plays late in I wouldn't say in the match, but it was late, and it was a 50-50 ball at midfield. Really had no business flying in like he did to take the guy out. I mean, he appeared to injure himself on the play as well, although he was back to normal within 5 seconds. So that was to avoid a yellow card, but he still ended up getting it.
I like
building
hustle.
a reputation too.
Yeah, I like hustle, but you have to have some sort of control here. And you kind of like Jibby last year. He's done it too many times. I think he's reaching the point where he's not going to get the benefit of the doubt anymore.
Yep. Yeah, good call on the worst there, Brad. I tend to agree with you there. I'm going to throw it over to you, Ken, for your first best and worst ever.
I hate to beat up on the same or use the same game, but Welshman's assist, I loved him stepping on the field and 3 touches later, and he's got an assist. I mean, I thought it was a beautiful play, and to watch him come in that late in the game, I mean, I was kind of shocked that was our first. I think that was our first sub, and it was like at the 82nd minute or something
Correct.
like that. And him to come on, and I just thought it was a well played ball, and I loved that play. That was just, it put the game away.
Yeah, even more impressive for me with Emery is, it almost seemed like he was playing the outside winger of a 4-3-3 at that point when he came on. We typically see Emery Welshman playing that number 9 spot, but Koenig was still on the field. And I don't know, maybe a little bit of a tactical change. We saw Emery more out wide than we historically have this year.
Well, maybe Koch saw Tampa was worn down, tired. I mean, Welshman's speed was just obvious. I mean, his he's fast as is, but his freshness was just you could he got 3 steps on that guy, and it was like, wow, this is a shot right here, chance.
Yeah. So all good things do have a bad thing. What's your worst?
Oh God, I hate saying this because I know it's going to be controversial. I hate it. The handball call in the World Cup final. I do not like VAR at all in that situation. So I know I'll sit there and argue. I mean, people argue it was a handball and it should be called, but there's many things that should be called, and I just didn't think that one was. It just hurt the game, in my opinion. I thought it was a great game, and I see Brad over there just staring up, going, "I disagree."
I'll be honest, I haven't seen the handball, so I don't know. But I know there's been a lot of controversy regarding VAR. Brad, you disagree? You thought it was a handball?
Yeah. I mean, nothing doesn't necessarily always have to be intentional, but if it impedes the ball from going towards the goal, if your hand's out wide, you can't have that here. If you're going to jump up, got to have your arms behind your back. You can't have your hands and your arms flying around. It's going to be called.
It says natural position, so the definition of natural is very interpretable. at that point.
I mean,
I'm just saying. I said
ball.
I don't want to get too far into this.
It was outstretched and it blocked the path of the ball.
Yeah. So it's careless.
Wow. So you got two guys here who say it was a handball. I watch ESPN FC daily, and those guys all said no handball. So I don't know what to think.
If it was FC Cincinnati and it was and we shot it and they didn't call that as a handball, I would lose my damn mind.
Well, we actually kind of had that on Saturday night. There was a handball in the box that was not called in the first half. Probably should have been a penalty for FC Cincinnati, but the referee definitely missed it.
Let me just say this. If he would have called handball, I wouldn't have complained, and to the point I would have said harsh, but that's what he interpreted it. It's the point that he had to go back to VAR, and I'm like, I just don't like that aspect of it. Was it a handball? By rule, it's a handball, but like I said, Mbappe was running into the box, and a guy grabbed his arm and pulled him back, and he didn't go down. That's impeding the runner by interpretation of the rule. That's a direct kick and a penalty if you want to go to the strictest of everything. So that's why I sit there and say, I love the interpretation. I love the human error. I do. I don't like it when it's blatantly obvious that the ball was going in the goal. If it was going in the goal, it was going across and there was a Croatian sitting there. So I was just like, man, that was harsh. That's, like I said, my opinion. We differ.
Yep, you're going to get a lot of varying opinions when it comes to VAR and handball. And with the ambiguity, it's a big word for me, with the rule, you leave it up to the interpretation, and that's what you're going to get sometimes. So good stuff there. Ken, how about you, Bill? Your best and worst?
Well, since we're talking about the World Cup, I think for my best, I'm going to give props to Croatia. I think, if I understand correctly, they were like the second smallest country to make it to the finals in the World Cup. So congrats to them. That's a heck of a feat, even though the ending wasn't quite what they wanted. But even more so, I think the fact that they clawed tooth and nail almost every game to get there into extra time and penalty kicks. It wasn't pretty, but they got what they needed done, and I think it's a lot for them to look forward to kind of just say, hey, that was a big thing for our country. So I think props to them. That was kind of my best, is just to see the little guy rise up and have their moment. So good for them.
And your
worst? I guess my worst is, I was going to say, I was waiting for my cue, but since you didn't do it, I was going to give my own, and my worst is. But my worst is, I guess, unfortunately, to see the Cincinnati Dutch Lions fall in the PDL this week. They were on a pretty good run. They were sitting in second place. They had 2 games to go. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get it done with Dayton Dutch Lions. They lost to their sister team up north, and that put them in a pretty bad spot. I think it was going to be a stretch anyway, just because Lansing and Michigan were already, closing on their heels with a couple easy games to go. So, but didn't fall their way, and unfortunately, they missed out on the playoffs, which I guess means that we won't be seeing them in the Open Cup, which is unfortunate. That would have been fun. So,
all right.
I would just love to see who the Super Mega Ultras would root for, if it came down to that.
Probably the referee, because they get along so well with the referee.
All right. I guess I missed something inside apparently with the Super Mega Ultras, but okay. All right.
It's the people who are FC Cincinnati fans, but they also have their own SG for the Dutch Lions.
I know who they are. I didn't. Anyway, I'm going to move on now. My best and worst. You would think by now, 15 minutes into the show and with all the prep I did tonight, that I would have a best at the end of my fingertips here, and I got nothing for my best, other than I will say this. My best was probably, I thought Corbin Bone was fantastic on Saturday night in that match for FC Cincinnati. He was all over the field making great plays. So he's my best, but I'm also going to give him my worst because I think he had a chance from like inside the 6 or very near the 6 and clanked it off the crossbar, which would have given him a goal. So At that point, I think we were maybe up 1-0 at that point. So I was kind of bummed that that Corbin didn't put that ball in the back of the net. But again, at this point, I'm nitpicking, grasping at straws here because I got nothing as far as works because I thought FC Cincinnati played. I thought they played really well on Saturday night, and I thought Tampa Bay was just not good. We watched these two teams in preseason, Bill. I don't know. I don't think you and I thought that either one of these teams would be where they were.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I knew that FCC was going to be good, but I honestly did not expect them to be sitting at the top. Obviously, Pittsburgh has got, a game in hand or 2 games in hand or something. I think 2 games in hand. So, they have the potential to pass us. But, for sure, I thought we'd be top 4. I think it was actually a bet with another supporter who will not be named. But, I said something like, I expect them to be in the top 4 or something. So we placed a bet that, they wouldn't be. So I feel pretty secure in my bet. But anyway, it looks like Brad wants to say something, but anyway.
Nope. I'm good right now.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, so I was thinking top 4, but definitely not sitting, so much at top 1. And in fact, when we did the podcast down in Tampa, Nick, we actually said to those guys that the team that we were fearing the most was Tampa.
Yeah.
And they kind of said the same thing about us, but here we are with them, I think they're out of playoff contention at this point. They're like 11th or 10th
12th.
or something. I can't remember what 12. Oh gosh. So they're way down there. And, even going into this game, right, they brought in Poku, right? So
they brought in a bunch.
Yeah, but there was a big worry about what is this going to mean? How are they going to play? And are they going to suddenly dominate again? And I think the big question was, Poku at the end of that game. So
yeah, I mean, you bring up some good points. I mean, they brought in Poku, who he was able to join the club this week with the signing period up.
He's been training with them for a while too, so it wasn't like he just showed up. I mean, he's been with them for a few weeks.
But practice speed and competition speed are 2 different things. You got Bonomo, who just came over, former Red Bull. You had Porter, their defender. So they're bringing in a ton of talent. So I know I was kind of shocked how they played in such a defensive shell, and maybe that's due to coaching. Maybe that's the guys aren't familiar enough with each other, and maybe as they progress, they might transition to more of that attacking team that we saw last year. But to basically keep them without any really high quality chances, other than maybe a set piece that I can remember, is just phenomenal for the defense of this club, who's proving 5 clean sheets in 7 matches in a row. It's a heck of an effort these guys are turning in the last month.
Yeah, Ken, I want to throw it to you now because as somebody who maybe critical is not the right word, but I think you at times this year have been wanting more from this club. They've played really well the last few weeks, but was this more a case of FC Cincinnati played great Saturday night, or was it Tampa was just that bad?
This, I would rate this actually as one of the best games FCC has played. I know people will sit there and go, there's no way we've won 4-1. We've dominated. And I think Brian said it. I hate that word, dominate. But this was just a workmanlike effort. And this is the type of effort that it's going to take for us to establish. I mean, mentally, long term, to grind the game out. And if I throw the stats out here, we had 2.15 xG to their under a goal, like 0.8 or something like that. And it's the second highest difference in xG that we've had all year. So I mean, it was a very well played game by us. Like you said, Bone played well. Welshman came in. I thought Allen was going to sub sooner, but man, when he brought in the subs, they made a difference. They were another energy. I thought everything played out well. I mean, from the tactics from the beginning, we sat back and I want to say worked ourselves into the game and didn't lose the game. This team has gone from, and I like I said, you said I'm the stats guy. We were like 28th or 30th at home for home defense, and now we're sitting at 15th. at home. So I mean, we've almost turned another notch on the defensive side and kept the offensive side still going, and that's what's impressive.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, Ken, you brought up a great point about the XG and how this is one of our biggest spreads. I mean, this is outside of maybe the home win against Richmond, which I'm assuming that's probably our highest XG spread. I can't remember.
Bethlehem at home, actually.
Really? That I feel like this was the best 90 minutes that they've put in all year. And why I say that, even though they scored more goals against Richmond, Tampa Bay is still a hell of a team. Their place in the standings may not say that, and I think in the end of the year they're going to get there and be that scary 6th, 7th, 8th place team you don't want to face in the playoffs. But I mean, this is one of the best 90 minutes, beginning to end, we've put in against a quality team. We struggled with when Alan said this, managing the game in Nashville, where we came out in that first half was really abysmal. Now we adjusted in the second half. And we've done that a lot this year, where we came out slow and we've made some adjustments that haven't done well. But this was the first time like I said, against top competition that we've put in a whole match performance.
I totally agree with Brad. No, go ahead. I was just saying I agree.
Yeah. So for me, I base it on, and I agree, the possession stats are a misnomer for me, because you can possess the ball all you want. If you're not getting any shots on goal, how dominant are you really? I go back to the defensive side of things, Bill, and I can recall really only one time Evan Newton was even tested. It was in the first half. Junior Fleming made a great run into the box and the near post shot. Other than that, I can't recall a time where Evan Newton was remotely tested.
No, I mean, this was definitely a really good 90 for our defense, and not just the 4 in the back and Evan, but the 2 in front of him, and really the all around 11. So it was great to see. I think this was their 3rd clean sheet now in a row, and 5 out of the last 7. So definitely the defense is starting to click, and at the same time we're still able to move forward and attack and score a couple goals. So, it seems like we're finding that right balance. For me, I think, obviously, it wasn't a lot of a test on Welshman's side, but, and there was only 2 goals, but I was kind of also thinking this game, it's kind of like a game of inches at some level. I mean, especially in the first half, right? I mean, like Ledesma's free kick was like just, an inch over the bar. And, there was,
there's a header in front of goal.
Yeah, right in front of goal. And I want to say Bone also had another shot, not the one off the woodwork, but I thought he had another one.
Yep,
but
it was
there's a corner they headed off the line, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, there was several of these plays that just, we got lucky, and a couple times they had a couple really great saves. We missed by an inch. So it easily could have been a lot higher scoring game. And at the same time, we kept that clean sheet. And it wasn't just a clean sheet. Like you said, it wasn't really a lot of pressure. So good for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about balance with this squad. Now, Ledesma with 9 goals, Koenig with 9 goals. Arguably, both have thrown their hats into the race, would you say, for USL MVP at this point of the year, guys?
There's no doubt.
I would say Ledesma is probably edging out Koenig just from an MVP.
Yeah,
the assist, exactly.
Yeah, I think also with Ledesma, he just pulls players out of position. He pulls defenders out of position because they know now he can shoot forever and put in the net. So with him, I think the second half of the season, we might see his goal stats go down, but I think it's just going to open it up for the rest of the team. And I'm really interested to see what it's going to do, because I don't think now when we face a Louisville or a Pittsburgh coming up, which, and maybe Charleston here at the end of the year might like to play a little more defensive. I think they're going to have to pay more attention to him. It's going to create more space for the Bones, the Nazmis, the Conics to get more balls in the back of the net. So I'm just excited to see. We've seen this evolution over the last month and a half. I'm excited to see how it's going to evolve going into the fall.
One of the crazy. Go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say, I just love how these guys are playing for each other. I mean, I watched Danny Koenig, and I'm like, he was happier for Ledesma scoring than Ledesma seemed to be. I mean, these guys are just wearing on a good way. They're rubbing off on each other. The other thing I like to point out is Ledesma's underrated defensively. He gets ungodly number of yellow cards. I agree, but he hustles back, and that's rubbing off too. Because I was watching the game, Danny Kudig was 3 yards from our goal line, our byline, defending, and I'm like, how? When do we see our forward that far back defending? And I mean, it wasn't in a situation. And I'm like, these guys are putting it all out there for each other, and this team's gelling. It's exciting.
I do have to say, Ledesma and Koenig right now remind me of Fulton Reed and Dean Portman from the Mighty Ducks right now, the Bash Brothers. I'm just telling you what, they couldn't be more excited if either one of them does anything wonderful. You know, they're the first person there to celebrate. So it's just cool to see how they continue to evolve and improve on their relationship.
I think one of the cool things about what this group is doing, correct me, does Ledesma have 9 assists or is it 8 assists on the year? Either way, it's one or the other.
I think it's 8.
I think, okay, so he's got 8. So the team lead all time for assists. Can you name who that is and how many they have?
Kenny Walker?
No, it's Ledesma.
No. I mean all time over all the history of FC Cincinnati. I'm pretty sure it's Corbin Bone with 12. Ledesma's got 8 in 1 year. So, I mean, that's remarkable. If you think about the year that Ledesma is having, he's almost already at the top of the franchise assist record and only playing in a third of the years of existence. So that's pretty cool if you think about that.
Yep. Yeah, he's been pretty phenomenal. And, you know, I think, you know, the other person that we haven't talked about much is Nazmi, you know, sitting with 8 goals as well, or 7 goals. Sorry, not 8. He has 7 goals. He kind of
had a quiet game on Saturday night.
He did. And I was going to comment on that because, you know, I think sometimes, you know, like we talk about like Ledesma's goal scoring may go down and that'll open up for other players. Well, if we look back, Nazmi was scoring a goal a game for like 4 or 5 games in a row. And, you know, I have a feeling that it looked to me like Tampa was at some level focusing on Nazmi because every time he got the ball, he'd have like 4 guys on him. And he'd try to take shots, but there was just no space and there was nowhere to pass the ball. So that kind of boxed him in a lot, kind of shut him down. But then that opened up, you know, Danny, and that opened up Manu and others to start to make some opportunities happen. So, you know, all in all, I think, you know, each player as they get, you know, good and the other teams focus on them, it just, you know, makes space for the remainder. So
death by 1,000 cuts, right? Exactly. I mean, who do you pick?
Yep. FC Cincinnati playing really well right now. More importantly, another clean sheet for Evan Newton, and the defense continues to get better there at home, something they weren't doing early on in the year, but hopefully that continues as they progress forward through the second half of the season. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and chat with folks from the – I shouldn't say folks. Kevin Wallace, the secretary of the Pride. He is part of the Unified Supporters of FC Cincinnati. We kind of teased it a little bit earlier in the show. They put out I guess they publicized today a list of things they'd like to see done with the new stadium for FC Cincinnati, and we are pleased to have Kevin join us here on the King's Hammer Hotline. Kevin, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
We are doing well. Thank you for being here. First and foremost, talk about and kind of explain, because this was you know, a surprise to me today. I didn't even know that the Unified Supporters of FC Cincinnati existed. So can you kind of walk us through what that is?
Yeah. So basically, we're moving to MLS. We're moving to our new stadium, and we have a unique opportunity as sports fans, soccer fans, FC Cincinnati supporters to have a say in this new stadium. Thanks to the sort of unique structure of soccer, the fans and the supporters tend to have a little more support than you'll find in the traditional American Big Four. And so the supporters groups, the four, I'm going to offend somebody, but I'll go ahead and say the 4 big ones had got together and had decided to kind of lay out a document of what we would like to see in this new stadium. And we wanted to make sure it was presented as a unified front. I think we're all stronger together than separate, and to make sure we're all on the same page in that front. But we wanted to come together and make sure that we had our voice heard. And I will also say, because I know this was out there, the club had asked for this. The club had reached out to the supporters groups and asked us to put together something that we would like to see in the new stadium. We surveyed our membership, and we put together the, I gotta say, awfully professional-looking document that we published today.
Yeah, no, we had a chance to read it today, and we'll definitely put it in our show notes and tweet it out to make sure all of our supporters are able to listen or to read it. Excuse me. But real quick, you talked about putting this document out. What are some of your priorities? And we can delve deeper into them in a little bit. But what are some of the priorities that you guys would like to see is important when we transition into MLS?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is going to come across as probably a little bit of personal bias. There was an intention to not sort of rank or prioritize each individual item there. So I'm going to mention them honestly as I view them as maybe the must-haves, and then working our way down. But some of these things include state standing section for the supporters group. If you're not familiar with this, it's basically an entire section of the stadium designed to be stood in rather than sat in with proper seats. You can get more people in there. You can have a steeper grade. This is more and more popular in MLS. You'll find it mostly in continental Europe. You will not find it at all in England. I think Celtic and maybe Rangers have it in Scotland. It's really, really cool. It's what Orlando does. It's what LAFC does. I think that would be a big priority. We also wanted to make sure we included somewhere in there the ticket pricing. If there was one concern I had heard over and over myself from people, thinking, oh, we're going to move to MLS, that means all the tickets are going to be, $100 a game, something like that. We wanted to make sure that the supporters group laid it out there, what every team is charging at MLS for their supporters, where we kind of viewed ourselves in there, and then given the fact that we are going to be in Nippert for a little bit before moving to our stadium, we wanted to make sure that the pricing was fair. And then I think there's a big catch-all of quality of life things for the supporters groups. These things include rigging to pull tifo and banners up vertically in front of the stand, so you don't get something like the streamer thing, tifo that twisted. Broken heart. If you're wondering where I was and all that, out right in the exact middle where the twist was, you'll find me just absolutely face full of shame trying to figure out what happened there. So there's a whole bunch of there. I would highly recommend people to read it, but that's sort of the general things of what we're looking at. I will say one thing you won't find in the document are general stadium things like, we want a nacho bar, or we want cushion seats on every seat. This is focused on the supporters group, supporters section area. I know not everybody in a supporters group stands there or sits there, but that was kind of our main concern and what we wanted to put out there today. So we got our foot in the door in these conversations because this train is leaving the station, and we wanted to make sure we were on it.
Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say two things that you said to me that resounded is price to make it affordable, and I think you guys came in with the $20 for a supporters group ticket. I think the average in MLS is about $22, and so I think that's definitely a good start. But most importantly, and I've said this several times on the show, can you kind of elaborate? Like, atmosphere to me is what makes FC Cincinnati attractive in this town. It's what gets people to the games. It gets them to come back. You can get a cheap ticket price and get somebody to any game, but it's what gets them to come back and come back and come back and come back. How can you guys continue to work with this club to make sure that this is something, in my mind, should be priority number one within a new stadium, and especially with the move to MLS?
Yeah, for sure. Things like that include capo stands. I know if you're much more of an English, support style person, you want spontaneous, nursery style rhymes coming out of the crowd. But with here in the United States, we have a strong influence from South America, which includes essentially song leaders, capo stands. You'll see these especially used in Atlanta. They have a good setup. But honestly, some of the best examples come out of Eastern Europe. So these are raised platforms, maybe at the bottom of the section, maybe 5-10 rows up, where somebody is on there, maybe even with a microphone and speakers pointed at the crowd, who are then leading songs, leading chants, so that gets to everybody in the section. And, if we're looking at other MLS sections, supporter sections, they are 2,000 to 3,000 people large. The Bailey right now is about 1,800. So we could very well be looking at a section that is twice the size of the Bailey. And, putting 1-2 people up on these stands would be ideal. Included in that is drum stands. This is something I know will be near and dear to Bill's heart there. Having a dedicated space for the drummers to be able to work their magic, make sure we're driving the crowd forward, making sure we're staying on beat, staying in time, those
Yes.
quality things. And then, general, let's make sure we don't have the smoke disappear. Let's make sure we don't have, this and that we already have disappear. That you unfortunately have started to see over MLS. And some of the cool stuff has been disappearing. We'd like that to not happen here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and kind of following up on that a little bit, Kevin, storage is another piece that was mentioned in that, and that's pretty near and dear to my heart, just because with the MLS security increasing next year and beyond, it's going to get harder and harder for us to bring stuff into the stadium. So having drum stands and smoke and things like that already in place is going to be a lot nicer if we can have that happen. But following
For
up,
sure. Sorry.
Yeah, well, no, you can go ahead and comment.
Well, I was just going to say, just as a point of reference, I think Nippert has, 4 or 5 dedicated storage areas inside of it to store everything. And FC Cincinnati, I think, maybe gets 1. They might get half of that one storage section. So the storage on site is going to be huge, not just for us, but for the club as well. So, yeah, definitely a concern going forward.
So how does this, go from here? I mean, how does the club take the feedback? I mean, I assume they are not reading it off of Twitter. You probably send it to them directly, and how do you expect to work with them going forward from here?
Yeah, so the supporters groups are in regular conversations with the club. We have at least monthly formal meetings where we get slapped on the wrist for things, and we try to slap them on wrist for things. But yeah, so that'll be a part of that conversation going forward. And we want to make sure that, when there are preliminary discussions with the architects and things like that, figuring out, being a part of those conversations, being invited there, just so we maybe have one representative who can raise their hands and be like, hey, can we make it steeper? Just to have that one guy in that room just say maybe 5 degrees steeper, maybe get a little bit closer to what we're shooting for here. So to be perfectly honest, not entirely sure exactly what those next steps look like, but that conversation is going to continue in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, and we'll kind of go from there.
Playing devil's advocate just a little bit, Kevin, you mentioned supporters meetings monthly with the front office. Obviously I've heard and I am part of the fan council, and somebody mentioned, well, what about the fan council? Why do we need this? So can you maybe offer why this is important versus what the fan council offers the club as far as feedback?
Yeah, for sure. And I have to admit, I'm not on the fan council, so I'm not 100% familiar with those conversations. My understanding is that it is a broader survey of the FC Cincinnati fan base, and that is absolutely going to include conversations about the in-stadium experience. But I'd be willing to bet that there's not as much of a focus on sort of the specific issues that pop up with the supporters groups and in the supporters section. And it's a delicate balance. I mean, you don't want to come out and say, we're special. We have to be taken care of. You got to hold our hands through this. We're absolutely not saying that. But if you're looking at a baseball game versus an NFL game versus an NHL game versus an NBA game versus an MLS game, the stadium experience is different in MLS than all of the others because of the supporters section. It's the smoke, it's the drums, it's the nonstop singing. It is what drives the fan experience, the crowd experience. And that stuff doesn't come out of thin air, and there are ways to make it better, and there are ways to make it worse. If you're curious about how it could be worse, go talk to somebody in the Barra Brava or in D.C., or go talk to somebody in Sector Latino in Chicago, or talk to anybody who's a fan of the Colorado Rapids. Like, this can be a lot worse than it is, and we'd like it to not be. It would be a lot to suggest this completely, but I think it's worth pointing out that it's our fans, our support, our in-stadium experience that drove us in the conversation to get into MLS. Nobody wanted Cincinnati. Nobody wanted our media market. We played in a college football stadium. We were trying to get a stadium passed in the city that is absolutely never going to pass another stadium deal, but we get it done. We're constantly in the conversation. We're constantly in the top four, if nothing else, because of our crowds, because of our fans, because of the support, because of the scene that made everybody want to look up our highlights on YouTube. And as much as they were watching the guys on the field, there may have been an eye in the crowd looking at that going, oh, man, wish we could have had that in Chicago, wish we could have had that in Philadelphia. So I think it's worth the club at least hearing us out, and we thought it was worth throwing it out there.
We're hanging out with Kevin Wallace. He's the secretary of the Pride, part of the unified supporters of FC Cincinnati, kind of talking about the, I wouldn't say list of demands, but things that they want to see implemented in the new stadium there in the West End. This one kind of caught my eye, Kevin, and I wanted to get your take on this. The Bailey has kind of been, I don't know, it's kind of a thing now. People talk about the Bailey, they know what it is, and now am I reading this correct, that the unified supporters don't want the Bailey to be named the Bailey, or want it to have a name?
Not so much. I wouldn't have that interpretation.
Okay.
So, and that is definitely the eye-catching thing on here. I feel like everybody else, you probably could have predicted everything that would have been in this document to some extent, but that one probably threw people for a loop. So I'm gonna put my nerd cap on here. We're gonna have a little history lesson for a second. Back in the let's call them the bad old days of FC Cincinnati, before a player had ever been signed, even before I think John Hartz was even rumored, the club had a marketing technique and a marketing theme that evolved and was central around medieval Europe. That's why St. Mark's, lion or whatever is on the crest, and that's where the Bailey came from. The Bailey is a section of a medieval castle wall that I saw somebody explain it. It's like the space between the wall and the royal family. So it was like we're on the wall, but we're protecting the Queen City, right? Get it? And so the Bailey, its name and the whole concept of it was born out of the same marketing team that gave you chalk face. So that's sort of the context of the name, the Bailey. Now, the Bailey as a name is dumb, like it's just objectively dumb, but we made it our own. And I don't mean we as in the supporters, I mean we as in FC Cincinnati fandom as a whole. Everybody sort of embraced that. We kind of ran with it. And yeah, the Bailey has become a brand. The Bailey is its own thing. I'd be willing to bet very few of your listeners even knew it had anything to do with a medieval castle wall or anything like that. So, since that didn't come from the supporters, and frankly, there wasn't a whole lot of organized supports in the beginning to say one way or the other, in the new stadium, if the supporters section is going to have a name, and it may very well be Bailey, I would be willing to bet right now we got about an 85 to 90% chance of this thing still being called the Bailey in the next stadium. But if it is, ideally that name is coming from the supporters and not from the club. If we can have the supporters have, their vote, their voice in this, I think it means a lot more coming from the fans. And if we took something stupid and made it our own, awesome. But if it comes to a point in time where it becomes the Jeff Ruby Steakhouse, brought to you by Kroger supporter section, like,
oh God,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're going to sign off on that one. So essentially, it was, if we're going to call it anything, if we're going to call it the Bailey, if we're going to call it the other option out there, by the way, the one I'd give a 10-15% chance of happening is the incline. If you wanted to get a glimpse at that, it'll be a really steep wall if you get it there. At least the supporters have a say in what that is. That's pretty much all that little sentence, that little blurb was about there.
Interesting stuff there, Kev. If folks want to learn more about the Unified Supporters Group or the Unified Supporters of FC Cincinnati and the documentation that was published today, where can folks go and read that at?
You should be able to hit it on all of the supporters group's Twitter accounts. I know we posted it onto our website as a proper blog post with all of the pages broken out there. I think DI and Legion linked to a Google Drive link, so you can kind of read it up there, whatever is convenient for folks. And it should be on the Bailey Facebook page as well. So hopefully wherever you're getting your FC Cincinnati news, this is able to come across your desk.
Awesome stuff, Kev. Appreciate you being on with us. And things going well at the Sign Museum?
Going good. We've been hitting record attendance month after month these last couple months. So keep it up, everybody.
That just means we need to get back down there for a live show.
That's what I heard.
All right, good stuff, Kev. Appreciate you being with us, buddy.
Absolutely. Have a good show, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's Kevin Wallace joining us here on the King's Hammer Hotline.
Yeah, I just appreciate the importance of keeping the atmosphere important, keeping that priority number one. That's what's going to get people to come back time and time again. And, like I've said before, what makes Nippert unique is the Bailey with the incline sitting over the field. I just hope our supporters in the club take something like that into account. We make it where it's intimidating to the opponents, and it gives us a competitive advantage and keeps the games a place that people want to come back to time and time again. So I'm glad to see this out there. I know some people at first kind of thought it might have been up is the right word, or a threat or a demand, but I really think they just want to be a part of the process. I think they should be a part of the process, and I think the club has done a great job and will incorporate them into the process going forward. So I'm glad to see it out there, and I definitely like the direction where this paper was going.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in. I mean, I'm obviously not an author of this or something, but I've certainly contributed some of my thoughts at different times through the surveys or just commenting to various people. And as a member of the Knights and such, I've given some opinions on some things. And certainly the intention has never been to hold ourselves out as special, but it was more to capture the things at Nippert that worked really well and try to make sure that we highlighted those for the club. And then to try to find the things that we could do better at and to highlight those for the club. And there's a lot going on. And, obviously Jeff Birding and the front office are extremely busy with, branding and preparing for the MLS and finding players. And, it's just going to be so easy for this stuff to get missed. So the more people that jump in and prepare this kind of information for them, the easier it's going to be for them to get it right. And we've seen, DC United coming out this real recently with their new stadium and having all kinds of issues with design and supporters groups and other things. So, we definitely don't want that to happen. We want to make sure we get this as a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. And just to echo real quick, down in Nashville, we went to Jeff Ruby's and had the Bailey's ice cream. But Boston and I had the opportunity to talk with Jeff Birding for a couple of minutes, and he just stressed again about how important it is to build this together as a group. They've done this with the Supporters Group Council. They've incorporated different ideas. They understood the branding was wrong off the bat, and they've changed it. And they want to continue to make us a part of the process. They don't want this to be they don't want this to be like the Bengals, okay? Where the ownership there stresses loyalty over performance. They don't even have a ring of honor. Jeff Birding's talking about from the bat of bringing in the original guys, the first year of MLS, original guy from USL to celebrate them and what they've done to build this group. So I really do have the full confidence in him. I have the confidence in the fan base where if they do go astray, where we will voice our opinions and try to crowd that back in. But I'm just excited to see where this thing is. And I really feel starting year one next year and into the stadium in a couple of years, we're going to be headed the right direction for long-term success.
Yeah, and look, branding's going to change. It's going to happen. It was announced today that Interbrand is on board now to craft the club's MLS brand identity. For those of you who don't know what Interbrand is, I believe they are the folks responsible for creating the Juventus logo that was much ballyhooed a couple years ago. So they mean business. So this is good for the club. I was kind of surprised to see the Bailey kind of being discussed as possibly being renamed. It's interesting because it in itself has become a brand. That's what people talk about. You want to sit in, and so my guess, along with Kevin's guess, was that it'll still be the Bailey moving forward into the West End Stadium. But I don't know. I guess I'm open to some other ideas. But it was interesting to hear and see what all the supporters groups and to see the unification, to see the four groups really come together to create one really idea was really cool to see. And you would never see anything like that with Bengals fans. You just wouldn't. So good stuff there. I'm glad Kevin had a chance to be with us tonight here on the show. All right, it's that time of the show where we thank our supporters. We want to give a big shout-out and thanks to Tim Bronsel with King's Hammer, Matt Adamczyk, Mama Subes, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Mike Hudson, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Jesse Gill, Kathleen Francis, Jesse King, and Teresa Everidge. This group of massive supporters of our show, they do a tremendous amount for us. So thank you for your support. If you're interested in becoming a supporter of CST, log on to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support, and that is where you can learn more about how you can wear an armband for an episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, and get involved with our Growler Cup as well. So again, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. Take a look now around the Eastern Conference standings. Pittsburgh, 4 points back of FC Cincinnati with 2 games in hand, so they are really nipping at our heels here down this stretch. Obviously, we've got some games with them coming up in this second half of the season, which will loom large. Louisville City continues to drop points. They are 9 points back with 2 games in hand, with, I believe, a loss over the weekend to the Charleston Battery. That 3-headed monster there at head coach couldn't pull through there down in Charleston. So Louisville continues to drop in the Eastern Conference standing. Nashville continues to impress as well. So much like last week's conversation about who scares us in the East, it's kind of the same story here another week. A lot of the same teams there in the top half of the conference continue to win and play well. So anything that stands out to you, Ken, regarding the Eastern Conference right now?
The Eastern Conference is tough. I'm saying the obvious here. But I would love for us to be in the West and be a top 4 team out there, because I think the next round, the bottom 4 teams in that side would be a little bit easier for us. But I'm just looking at my numbers, and my projections are it's going to be Pittsburgh first, which I know nobody wants to hear, but that's just based on road and home forms, followed by us, and then Nashville, and then Charleston Battery. So Louisville wouldn't even get a home match on my projections. Obviously, anything can happen. Injuries, new signings, changes that all up. But we're deep. I got Bethlehem Steel and New York Red Bulls is New York and Bethlehem is 7th and 8th. So we would play New York first round on my projections. That gives us an idea, and we got them coming up on Saturday.
Yep, going to be a good game this upcoming weekend. Let's talk a little bit about Nashville. We've got some breaking stadium news about them, don't we, Brad?
Yeah. I don't know if it's a little bit tough right now. It looks like, and this is breaking as we're talking right now, but it looks like their Metro Council, their finance committee or budget committee has decided that they want to revisit the stadium lease at the fairgrounds, so they've voted 4-2 with a bunch abstaining, but they're going to recommend approval of a resolution expressing the council's intent to suspend actions of that lease. So it looks like it's either going to be taken up tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, it's going to be pushed into August. So kind of tough times for the Nashville fans. As they're looking to build their club, and they might have to adjust where their stadium site is, but just pay attention to that. I wouldn't wish anything bad on them. We had a great time down there last weekend, and I think it would be a humongous hit in Major League Soccer to add Nashville. But yeah, just it's a never-ending process, and always confuses me on why MLS jumped so quickly with Nashville, yet they made us jump through hoop after hoop. But luckily, we've got our stadium deal tied up, and we'll just worry about ourselves, right, Tubes?
Yeah, well, I mean, all you need to know is that there's a new mayor in Nashville. Anyway, we move on quickly. So let's take a look now.
Woot woot.
At the upcoming games. FC Cincinnati. Go ahead, Brad.
Giggity.
Anyway, FC Cincinnati now they get to play a couple more games here at home this week. They host Charlotte, a team that knocked them off, giving them their only road loss of the year back in May. A surprising loss at that, because FC Cincinnati had been playing well at that point. And then they go on the road and lose that one in Charlotte, which was kind of a surprise. Meantime, Charlotte comes to town. FC Cincinnati playing really well. What intrigues you the most about this upcoming matchup on Wednesday night, Bill?
The fact that it's on ESPN2 while Louisville is playing in the Open Cup against an MLS team. I think it's nice that we got the attention this game. Kind of shows you the selling power that FCC has today. So that's good news. But no, I think what's intriguing to me is just the revenge factor, right? I mean, we were playing really well. We were undefeated at that point on the road. We were winning, or at least tying a lot of games. And it was not just a loss, but it was a bit of an embarrassing loss. It was a 4-1 loss. So it was pretty significant. We just kind of, the wheels fell off the cart, and everything came to a full stop. And, obviously teams have bad days. That was a bad day. So it's time for us to show Charlotte what we're really made of, and the quality that this team has.
Charlotte comes into this match 8th place in the Eastern Conference, 7 wins, 6 losses, and 6 draws, 27 points. Right now, as Bill mentioned, this game will be on ESPN2. So FC Cincinnati with another chance to play in front of a nationally televised audience, which is pretty spectacular. There are a couple of actually MLS games that night that are being aired on ESPN Plus. They're not even being aired on ESPN2. So FC Cincinnati getting some much needed love, and not just FC Cincinnati, but USL in general. I think this is good for the league. So that's going to be exciting stuff. What
ESPN just like seeing butts in seats, Subs.
Well, that is a valid point. Ken, what do you make of this match, and what are you most looking forward to now that you get to go to back-to-back matches?
Well, let's not forget there's hardware on the line for this. This is the Queen City Cup, and as Bill alluded to or stated, we lost 4-1. Based on, again, I mean, the XGs, it's 2.6 goals for FCC to 1.1 for Charlotte, so we're pretty close to 3. If we could shut out Charlotte, that'd be a 3-0 victory, and we'd bring home the Queen City Cup. The one thing I'd like to point out, though, is Charlotte. We FCC score a lot of goals. Charlotte's the only team in the East that has a better conversion rate than us. So every time they shoot the ball, they got a 14.8. We're 14.1 or something like that conversion rate. So they're the only team that does better than us. We got to eliminate or limit their shot opportunities because they are a good finishing team. So it's going to be on our back line to come out and shut them down. And I'm just wondering who Koch is going to come out and play, because we got a Saturday game and we just played Saturday. So lineup and formation is going to be different. Do we go for the cup? Do we try and go for 3, or do we just go for the 2, the victory? And I'm fine with the victory. Trust me, victory first. Cup is another thing. I'd rather have victory than a 4-0 victory and a tie. So
yeah. I would say that I'm with you. 3 points is a must Wednesday night against Charlotte. I want to go back to Saturday night, and I was kind of surprised at the lateness of the substitutions. Knowing you have a game on Wednesday, I was surprised that he didn't go to the bench sooner to give some of these guys who we think would play Wednesday a little bit more of a break. Now, Charlotte did not play over the weekend, so they're going to be coming in fresh on Wednesday night, whereas FC Cincinnati, obviously they're going to have some rubber legs. Were you surprised, guys, at the I don't know. I know they had water breaks, hydration breaks there in the match, but at the same time, like I don't know. I would maybe thought the subs would come a little earlier.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't take out any of the defenders. I definitely wouldn't take out Lahoud as the more important players. We were only up 1 goal till the 84th minute
True.
when we scored late. So it wasn't like we were at a point where we could really just stop going forward. Yeah. So I don't know about that. I think you're going to see Welshman over Koenig, and I'm not sure about Ledesma if he can go at all or not. Yeah, I don't know.
You're probably gonna see Boehner.
Yeah, you'll see Boehner, but you're not going to sub out your wing backs really unless it's like the 94th minute.
Did I hear Lang was off the injury list?
He was not mentioned on the broadcast.
I forgot he was on the team.
Yeah, he's been hurt for a long time.
I'm being facetious, of course, but
I know.
I don't know. I don't take too much in the way of subs. You got to get the 3 points when it's apparent. You never know what happens. You could give up 2 first couple minute goals and your sub plan's wrecked. So you got to take the 3 points while you can.
The question is with the late substitutions, was that some sort of an indication that Alan Koch is going to do some heavy rotation on Wednesday? So he was holding back players so that, nobody was worn out at all. Like, Boehner and others were fresh. So I don't know. I would not be surprised to see Jimmy and Boehner and
Barrett.
Patty.
Barrett.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Richie, it could be a whole different lineup. I don't know how I feel about that, but wouldn't surprise me.
One thing you're probably going to see is Blake Smith at left back.
Yeah.
Yep. And probably Declan Cannon.
So you're thinking Declan and Patty?
I'd say that's a good chance.
I would think that Declan would get a break, considering it's a midweek game. I don't know. It's getting up there in age. Got to keep him fresh down the stretch.
Play into this? Does national TV play into this? Do we,
No, that's a good point. It's a good point. If Jeff has any say in it, probably does. And then on the flip side, the other thing that you may ask just as far as the lasso thing, and I can't answer it because I don't know, but, is one of the 2 teams, New York versus Charlotte, have taller players, stronger aerial game? Because if one of them has some large forwards or defenders, we may want to put Lasso in for that game.
Yeah, you have Eman Zayed coming in this week. You've got Jorge Herrera, who's a little bit smaller, 37 years old, but he still have 9 goals in the season. Guy just ageless. I would probably run out the same group. You got a big break coming up after in a couple weeks. I don't expect a lot of these guys to play, I wouldn't want them to play against Espanyol. The game's meaningless. It really is. So
we'll run out the full roster for that, right? We'll put every player in.
I would go against that. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Get as many league points as you can. This is you've got a lot of tough matchups coming up. You've got Nashville coming up. You've got a ton of playoff teams in the front mirror for FC Cincinnati. Get as many points as you can right now. You don't want to risk anything in the future. So I really don't care about the Espanyol match. Get points against Charlotte, get points against Red Bulls, and then we've got some fights coming up against Nashville, against Charleston, and then against Pittsburgh, I think, at the end of the summer. But get them now. These are your chances to get points.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brad. You got to get the points. You look at the standings. A lot of these teams got couple games in hand, and so one slip up, and the next thing you know, Pittsburgh's on your tail. I mean, they already are. They're already on the FC Cincinnati's tail, so they can't take games off or take games lightly or treat these as points in the bag. And I'm not saying that they are, but when you're playing a team like Charlotte, who traditionally hasn't done well on the road, I don't think they've picked up. They may have gotten 1 point in their history coming here to Cincinnati. I think you got to get the points, and yeah, you're going to have to trot out some guys who are probably going to be tired. But you know what? Everybody else in the league is going to be tired right about now. So
Brad, are you saying that we should trot out the same lineup that we just had Saturday and trot it out Wednesday and trot it out Saturday again, and maybe with just one or two subs?
Just one or two. These guys, they've got a meaningless game at the end of July. You've had a couple weeks in a row where you've had full weeks off. You're playing at home, so you're not gonna have to deal with the travel fatigue. Put out your top lineup. We don't have to rotate. If this was away, home, away, I get it. Your travel weeks are different. But we've got home for the next month and a half. These guys should have plenty of rest, plenty of time. And like I said, we've got we don't have the schedule congestion we had last year. We don't really have to worry about that. These guys can go. I trust Austin Berry and Alan Koch to know when the guys are in that quote unquote red zone we talked about so much last year. I don't think we have that this year. Get as much time as you can. Put Ledesma in there from the start. I don't see the point. I know we're infatuated with Russell Cicerone and his effort. I know we're infatuated with Jimmy because he's been around for such a long time, but they aren't as skilled as Ledesma and some of the other guys on the team. Put our best players in now, get these points. I don't think the fatigue is an issue.
The only two positions I would say that I put Emery Welshman in for Koenig maybe at the top. Mm-hmm. And maybe Patty Barrett in for Deckel. I'm not sure if Deckel can run three out. I mean, I'm sure he can. I'm just saying the third game against New York, and New York is a Jekyll Hyde team. We were talking about it before, but I mean, I'm scared of them offensively.
Yeah, I mean, it's matchups on that. I'm not worried about fitness. Whatever Coach Koch likes, if he likes maybe a smaller Patty going up against Jorge Herrera. I'm not worried about that. Put in Ledesma. He's fit. Put in Nazmi. He's fit. We don't need to rotate those guys out. Get as many points as you can right now.
Is there any chance we give somebody like Tyler Gibson, who's been waiting to make his debut, run out?
I don't know. Does he deserve it? That's what it comes down to. I can't make that judge. I don't want to give a guy a run out just to get minutes. We need to get every single point we can.
Yeah,
you guys answer. Go ahead, answer.
I think, they were talking about him as potential for Nashville. So he's obviously very close. He wasn't in the 18 there, and they did say that, he wasn't ready yet. But my thought with Tyler is you're not going to see him in the 11 until you see him in the 18. And, it's very likely that you put him in and then you give him 15 minutes at the end of a game and see how he does, in a situation where if he fatigues or whatever, it's not as much impact.
International friendly.
I was about to say Espanol would be the match for him.
Exactly.
He's probably got that circled on his calendar.
Yep.
So, look, it's going to be a busy week for FC Cincinnati. 2 matches, both of them at home. 2 really good matchups, obviously. The one thing about the Red Bulls that's interesting, and we kind of talked about it before the show, the Red Bulls have not won on the road this year at all. They don't have one single road win. So that bodes well for FC Cincinnati. But, look, can't worry about that game first. Game's first. Charlotte this week, midweek. So it'll be a good one. And it sounds like there's going to be 2 really big crowds here for these 2 games. So pack that stadium. It's going to be a fun week for FC Cincinnati. Of course, we've got our Growler Cup. We've got, we've been making our predictions all season long. Make sure you check out our website, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com, to see what the CST experts are thinking. The Boston Razzle Dazzle Brazzle has I don't know what he's doing with his Growler Cup picks. He's got some sort of theory where he picks against FC Cincinnati. Look, as long as he continues to pick against FC Cincinnati and they keep getting 3 points, Boston, lie on that sword for us. We appreciate it. If you want to get involved in the Growler Cup, you can. CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support is where you can do just that. Don't forget, we've got the 3rd annual Cincinnati Soccer Talk Foot Golf Classic coming up on August 25th. Brad, fill us in.
Hey, Saturday, August 25th, like you said, at Woodland Golf Course starting at 3 p.m. $180 includes a foot golf for 4, drinks at the course, dinner, banquet, gifts, holes, prizes, dinner, like I said, at West Side Brewing, and a donation to sports games for kids. Make sure you sign up now. The price goes up to $200 starting August 1st. So right now it's at $180, goes up to $200. Reserve your team now. We are about at where we were at this point last year. So signups are signups equal the number of teams we had last year. So signups are way ahead of pace. It's killing it. We just appreciate everybody coming out. It's going to be a great time. You can, like I said, dinner, Westside Brewing, FC Cincinnati watch party versus Tampa. It's just going to be a great time. So sign up now, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/footgolf.
And if you don't have a foursome, don't worry. You can now register as a single golfer for $45 over at our website, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/footgolf. We'll get you paired up. We'll get you on a team. So, again, it's going to be a great time and for a great cause, sports games for kids. So make sure you head over to do that. All right, it's time we're going to wrap things up here on episode 124. First, we'll start off with Ken Hetger. Ken, appreciate you being back with us this week, man. Really enjoyed your take. We need to hear your voice a little more often. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy hearing the sultry tones of Ken Hetger.
You're being a little too kind. It was nice to be back. I'm sure I'll be a little more frequent here now that I'm slowly getting back in the groove. I guess the one thing I want to hit on is something we talked about earlier, or somebody brought up earlier on our good and bad. I actually want to congratulate both the Cincinnati and Dayton Dutch Lions for an excellent season. I actually don't know what Cincinnati finished today. Was it a draw or a win or what? It was a draw.
Yeah, I think.
But it's good to see local soccer, not only here in Cincinnati, but in Dayton, grow. Those are two of our, Cincinnati's obviously a key market, but as well, also Dayton. Happy for Paul Nicholson getting some coaching under his belt. I see big things for him. I hope big things for him. Just, I think what he did with that group, even they started out rough, they ended the season strong. And I think that's a good sign for him. And let's just keep local soccer growing. And thanks to the super mega ultras for making the Cincinnati Dutch Lions a go-to event. Thanks.
Good stuff, Ken. Appreciate it as always. I agree with you about Nico. Started off rough, and obviously got some experience there with the Dutch Lions and turned it around. So good stuff, Ken. As always, appreciate you being with us. Final thoughts from Brad Weigel.
Okay, I got 2. First of all, if you want to see somebody win at Twitter tonight, please check out Nazmi Al-Badawi's tweet. I guess he ended up, I have no idea. We've got to get Trisha on the show next week to talk about this. But I guess he went to Harry Potter Trivia Night at Pub Rookwood and got first place with a team that includes our very own Trisha. The guy dressed up as Harry Potter, complete with the lightning scar. So hats off, the confidence of this man to go out in public looking like that. Amazing. I wouldn't do it. But July 25th, the World Cup Comedy Tour, which is, if you guys don't know, it's a total soccer show. And got the guys from the Colligans. They're coming to Liberty Center Funny Bone, which is next Wednesday. They're going to be interviewing actually a couple members of our supporters groups. They're going to talk about the development of FC Cincinnati, how this whole thing kicked off. If you want to go, buy your ticket. Go to the Funny Bones website, buy your ticket, and type in code Cincy, capital C-I-N-C-Y, capital F, capital C, and the SG will get a little bit of kickback to help support the cause. Money goes back to charity fundraising, your TIFOs that you see, your smoke, all that. So make sure if you're going to go next week, should be a great time. World Cup Comedy Tour at Funny Bone with the code capital Cincy FC.
Good stuff, Brad. As always, appreciate you being with us this week. And now you can go back to being a Tottenham fan for, believe it or not, the season is upon us.
Capitan's a Champione.
Anyway, good stuff, Brad. Final thoughts, Bill Wolf?
Yeah, I'm just going to give a shout out to the UC gaffer, Neil Stafford, and tell him congratulations, him and his wife, on the birth of their newborn baby girl. So,
yeah, congratulations to the gaffer. I saw the pictures on social media earlier tonight. Very cute family. So congrats, Neil. Good stuff, Bill. As always, appreciate you being with us. As I play your sound effect, a little belated, but hey.
It's never too late.
My final thoughts. Don't forget, rate and review the show on iTunes. Make sure you get subscribed to the podcast because we've got March to Match Day coming up this week. Brian Weigel does a great job with that show and previewing the Red Bulls, so you make sure you want to get subscribed. I know we had some issues last week with Android users who listen on Google Play. I'm not sure if those have been resolved with our podcast host and Google Play. From what I've been told, though, if you subscribe using the Google Podcast app, which is a new app that is dedicated to Android users, you should be able to get the podcast downloaded. So if you continue to have issues downloading the podcast, if you're an Android user, please let us know. Email us feedback@cincinnatissoccertalk.com. There are other ways to listen to the show if you're an Android user. It's not all about iPhones, even though I'll admit I am an Apple snob. I like iPhones, I like iPads, but I know a lot of you like Android. So there are other apps like Pocket Casts, TuneIn, Stitcher. I'm trying to think. What else is there, Bill? I know you're an Android
Podcast
guy.
Addict.
Podcast Addict. Yep, that's another good one that I'm that I've heard a lot of good things about. So Overcast, I believe, is also on Android. There are other apps so you can get our show. The biggest thing is to get subscribed so you don't miss a single episode of our podcast. If you get subscribed, they download automatically to your device and you don't miss it. So again, thank you to everybody who's tuned in live. If you are listening to the podcast after the fact, we do record the show every Monday night at 9 o'clock. And we've got a Facebook chat room. We've got a YouTube chat room. We're monitoring tweets. We're monitoring Periscope. I mean, it's a busy night, but there's all kinds of ways to interact with us and talk all things FC Cincinnati. So make sure you join us each and every Monday night at 9 o'clock. My thanks to Kevin Wallace, the Secretary of the Pride, for joining us this week. And, of course, the Wolfman, Bill Wolf, Brad Weigel, and Ken Hetker. I'm Subes reminding you all to watch your tackles, and we will see you all next week. All right, we are out.